Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. As seeking to establish his legacy, U.S. President Barack Obama delivered his seventh and final State of the Union address Tuesday night, telling both houses of Congress to look ahead, not just of the next year, but 5 years and beyond. VOA's Carolyn Presutti has our report.
In his final State of the Union, the man who promised hope spoke of the nation as clear-eyed, big-hearted, and optimistic, yet now unnerved by terrorism.
When you come after Americans, we go after you.
Despite attacks in Paris and California, Obama said foreign and homegrown terrorists are deadly, but do not threaten the nation's existence. Yet he urged the Republican Congress to act.
If this Congress is serious about winning this war and wants to send a message to our troops and the world, authorize the use of military force against ISIL. Take a vote.
The president also asked Congress to take the next step on Cuba and lift the trade embargo. And in the Pacific, he asked for approval of the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. Shortly before the speech, 10 American sailors on 2 patrol boats like these were detained by Iran. The president did not mention the incident, even as he touted the Iran nuclear agreement before skeptics in Congress.
As we speak, Iran has rolled back its nuclear program, shipped out its uranium stockpile, and the world has avoided another war.
South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley gave the Republican Party response, envisioning a White House under different management.
We would make international agreements that were celebrated in Israel and protested in Iran, not the other way around.
On the president's requests, Republican pollster Matt Gammon.
I don't think he expects serious action on any of those items coming out of this Congress in particular, but I think he wants it to be seen, I think he wants to be seen that he cares about these things to the people who will be writing his legacy in the future.
The president said he regrets the nation's continuing political divide and criticized negative comments by Republicans.
All the talk of America's economic decline is political hot air.
Meanwhile, on Twitter, Republican presidential candidates responded. Donald Trump calling the Obama speech lethargic. Ted Cruz dubbing it a state of denial, not a State of the Union. The message the White House wanted to deliver was for Americans to look past Republican rhetoric and to focus more on the issues that would affect future generations. Americans vote on a new president in 10 months. In Washington, Carolyn Presutti, VOA News.
Well, the political world, from presidential candidates to members of Congress, reacted to President Obama's final State of the Union speech. And VOA's Katherine Gypson tells us more about that.
It was a night of contrasts as Democrats and Republicans reflected on Barack Obama's legacy as president. The president urged America to look to the future in a time of change. Democrats praised his attempt to sum up the past 7 years.
The whole speech was a bit wistful. I think he was looking at his experience of the past 7 years and giving advice as he sees it. And I think it was heartfelt, and I would venture to guess that of all the speeches that he's given for the State of the Union, this one was the one he probably wrote himself.
I thought the president was strong about America's role internationally, that we are the strongest power in the world, and that has responsibilities, and that we need to be engaged and we need to show leadership. I thought he was very strong in the principles that we stand up for.
Republicans criticized what they said was a lack of detail.
I wish he had addressed that he didn't. I wish I'd have heard more about how do you balance the budget. I wish I'd have heard how you defeat ISIL and how do you get the economy growing faster.
He fell way short. He talks a good game, but why not implement what he talked about tonight?
But the 2016 presidential election was on everyone's mind, even Obama's.
I'm going to try to make it a little shorter. I know some of you are antsy to get back to Iowa.
And Republican candidates reacted even before the speech.
The State of the Union will not be a call to action tonight. It'll be a fantasy wish list by a president who's failed us.
Taking to Twitter immediately after the speech, Jeb Bush said that with his economic approach and strategy to defeat ISIS, the president lives in a different world. President Obama's legacy was the focus this night and certain to be debated on the campaign trail in the months ahead. Katherine Gypson, VOA News, Washington.
Hey, this is not your stage.
Well, for more analysis on the president's address, I'm joined by VOA national correspondent Jim Malone. Jim, welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks, Vincent.
Now, first, how significant is the president's very last State of the Union in crafting his legacy?
I was struck by the fact that we have a president who's been in office for 7 years. He clearly seems to be reflecting on the end of his tenure now. This is going to be a year-long farewell tour. And I think what we saw in the State of the Union was basically a preview of his farewell address. That'll come about a year from now, just as he leaves office. I think he wants to set the tone of achievement, accomplishment, and the need to build on those achievements. Probably for a Democratic president, he'd like that to be the case. And I think he's also kept in mind the fact that it's been a very negative tone and rhetoric from the Republican presidential candidates. That seemed to be on his mind.
And being, typical campaign period, there's an election year.
Right.
Were you expecting any different reaction, especially from the Republicans?
No, I mean, the Republicans have hammered away at two key things. They say the economy is weak and that he's been a weak president abroad and in protecting the country. And we heard the president in his State of the Union give a completely different view as to what his record has been. They continue to hammer away at the Obama record and the legacy. I think the president felt it was time to chime in and say, wait a minute, let me offer an alternative narrative here about what really is going on and try to get people looking optimistically. The other aspect about the political divide, he spent a long time on that. That's a tough nut to crack, especially in a U.S. election year.
At this late hour, from your experience, does a speech like that really change people's minds, influence people's perspective in any way?
I think the key thing for Democrats, it probably was an encouragement, and a lot of them probably liked it. If you're a Republican, you probably are going to dismiss it as somewhat irrelevant. And as the campaign goes on, it'll be more about who succeeds Mr. Obama. And they will be running on his record, and there'll be a lot of criticism of it. But then you have Hillary Clinton hoping to keep his followers, or whoever the Democrat is, as they move to the White House or try to make a move in 2016.
Who kind of shares part of that legacy because we're in the system. Now, many of our viewers in Africa were listening keenly to hear what he would say about Africa or his policies.
Right.
Yeah.
Not a lot. And he's the favorite son of Africa. We know that.
Yeah.
So he's got that legacy making history that way. But look, even the previous president, George W. Bush, had a fairly strong record in terms of involvement in Africa. So there's some reasons to compare and contrast there. But I think Obama probably will be cherished, and you would know this better than I, in Africa, as a favorite son who achieved great heights. Nothing will change that.
Now, just a little bit, if we may conclude on the side of the impact and effect it may have on the campaign.
Yes.
Have you seen that strong embracing of his legacy's achievement by the Democratic side? Or is there anybody who's trying to say, well, I'm my own person, I don't really want to be associated with his past?
Democrats are generally supportive. They need those Obama followers to come out in November that elected him twice. They need that core Democratic base that includes a lot of minority voters, women voters, young people. They can't jeopardize that. Here's the challenge. Americans generally, after 2 terms of one president, are looking for change. And if you're Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, even Martin O'Malley, you have to offer some form of change and yet not distance yourself too much from the Obama legacy.
Do a little more than that.
It's a political tightrope act.
Well, Jim, thank you very much.
All right,
as
Vincent,
always.
thank you.
Yeah, we do appreciate your perspectives. Our thanks to Jim, our national correspondent, Voice of America.